Our News is brought to you by Alive.
Believe in best.
Coming up tonight, remembering the victims of Hurricane Dorian. The Water and Sewage Management Union calling on the chairman to do the honorable thing. Plus, the Delta variant not detected locally. Welcome to our news and thanks for joining us. I'm Christina Dragovich. Topping news tonight, a sad day in the country as Bahamians observe the 2-year anniversary of Hurricane Dorian, which battered Abaco and Grand Bahama, leaving death and destruction in its wake. Residents on Abaco gathered at a memorial service this morning to remember those we lost. Giorgio Bain reports.
My personal feeling is I think more people should have been here.
Abaco Christian Council President Pastor Egbert Tinker slamming the small attendance at this morning's memorial service, stating that it should have been a national service.
I submit to you who will lead and will come to leadership, do something about that. Stop taking it so slight and so trite. We've lost our people that we knew.
A small group of Abaconians and government officials gathered on the island today to remember the countless lives lost during Hurricane Dorian. North Abaco Member of Parliament Darren Henfield applauded residents for their tenacity, but said much more must be done to restore Abaco, which was ravaged by the monster storm.
We will continue to strengthen our resources in our quest to build back better. While natural disasters capture the headlines and national attention short term, the work of recovery and rebuilding is long-term. Sylvia Matthews Burwell. There is still much more work to be done as we endeavor to return life pre-Dorian. My fellow Abaconians, I applaud each of you for your contribution to restoring our communities.
Progressive Liberal Party leader Philip Davis said more must be done to bring closure to families who are still hurting 2 years later.
Much more has to be done. For example, we need to very quickly move to rein in that period of time for the presumption of death. Many persons who are missing, the families are undergoing extreme challenges in dealing with the affairs of that missing person.
Following the memorial service, there was a wreath laying at Browns Bay and the Union Jack dock. The death toll stands at 74, with hundreds still missing. Reporting for Our News, I'm Giorgio Bain.
Amid controversy surrounding Water and Sewage Corporation Executive Chairman Adrian Gibson and controversial contracts, the management union is calling on him to do the honorable thing. Kyle Joaquin reports.
According to the union president, these allegations do not come as a surprise. They're now supporting a full police investigation and also calling on Gibson to, quote, do the honorable thing.
We call upon the executive chairman and the general manager to do the honorable thing in the interest of the Water and Sewage Corporation, the Bahamian people, its employees, and its vendors.
WSC Management Union President Montgomery Miller saying it's time there be some accountability at the top of the corporation. With Executive Chairman Adrian Gibson now under fire with mounting calls for an investigation into the awarding of WSC contracts, in particular to Elite Maintenance Incorporated, whose director just happens to be a woman with the same name as Gibson's then fiancé. The union president says the anti-corruption unit needs to get involved.
We have no difficulty with a full investigation of the activities of the corporation. None whatsoever. We would support that.
In a statement on Sunday, the corporation's general manager Elwood Donaldson said the contracts went to bid, while Gibson failed to clarify whether the company's director is indeed his then fiancé. Miller told members of the press that since last year, the union has been calling for some sort of investigation into financial matters at the corporation, and even documents going missing.
We are aware the documents were removed from one of our facilities some time ago. We are concerned about the storage of those files because our understanding is that they're very sensitive and very important files that needed to be kept. At the time, they were stored in air-conditioned facilities, and now it is possible that they're stored in unsecure, unsuitable circumstances.
Then there's the treatment of employees. Miller says despite writing everyone from the Minister of Works to the Prime Minister, there has been no response for any intervention, leaving employees at the will of the executive chairman.
We've had many cases where managers have been dismissed wrongfully. We've had employees that have had, as I mentioned, salaries withheld wrongfully. We've had persons transferred clearly without any justification. Typically, if you're going to move, particularly a management employee that has other persons under their remit, you would take time to go through that process. You would engage them. You would have some rationale for doing so. None of that has happened. There's been no discourse.
Miller says at the end of the day, the union just wants what's best for the corporation, which in this case would be accountability and an investigation.
While the organization is currently employing tactics to address purported leaks, we remind the leadership of the organization that they are legally bound to keep intact the full records of the corporation.
We reached out to the executive chairman for comment. However, our calls were not returned up to airtime. For Our News, I'm Kyle Joaquin.
Meanwhile, 2 years after Dorian ravaged Grand Bahama and the surrounding Keys, one storm survivor still gets emotional as she recalls how Sweetings Key residents got by with the generosity of Good Samaritans. Vonique Toot has her story.
Here on Sweetings Key, we met Michelle Duncombe, stooped over a bucket, scrubbing clothing on her hands. Michelle has called this place home for 17 years. Before Dorian rolled in, she and her husband decided to stay at home.
I was right here in this corner. The water was right here.
Despite warnings to evacuate, Michelle says she had no idea it would be so bad.
We were still in our home when the hurricane, because it didn't go. The roof was damaged, but the water was rising, but not rise too high as some places. So we was able to stay in the home until when the hurricane passed, then we could come out.
Must have been frightening though.
Yeah, but it was a mess. We lost everything. Clothes, food. When I look, all my bread was wet up.
She estimates over 30 residents weathered the storm on Sweetings Key, but were stranded after Dorian finally passed. They got by with the help of choppers that dropped off food, water, and other necessities.
So whoever they are, I want to reach out to them and say, I thank you guys, ladies and gentlemen. I thank you so much for what you've done. If it wasn't for you all, I don't know what would have happened to us. It's sad. Thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Duncombe says she will be eternally grateful for the kindness of those strangers.
People in high position, I won't call the name, came here on this key and they bring nothing. And we get assistance from Americans or other countries to bring water to us. And government officials bring nothing for us. Nothing. And I want to make that clear.
After Dorian, Duncombe, her husband, and their 2 sons lived in this tent for over a year. With the help of NGOs like CORE, the Duncombe's recently moved back into their home. When the weather permits, Duncombe's husband goes out to sea to make a living, but she says her home requires a lot of work.
Thanks to CORE, who really help us with our home, really help us a lot with our home, you know. And thanks for them. That's how we could really live in our home right now. As you see, the tent is still up still, but right now we currently live in our homes, but we still need help to really do a little more fixer-upper in our home. But it's pretty looking good from where we left from Hurricane Dorian until now.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Vonique Toot.
Politicians pausing their campaigns to hold a ceremony on Grand Bahama this morning to remember the lives lost during Dorian. Jasmine Brown reports.
It was a somber atmosphere as Dorian survivors were joined by PLP Deputy Leader Chester Cooper and the party's Grand Bahama candidates during the short ceremony held at the Hurricane Dorian Monument. Located at the Jack Hayward Bridge, which leads to East Grand Bahama, it serves as a memorial to the lives lost on Grand Bahama.
It is important to the Progressive Liberal Party this morning that we pause our campaign to visit this monument in memory of the persons we lost during Hurricane Dorian. This is indeed a solemn occasion, and even on this second anniversary, it still feels very fresh.
Also suspending their campaign today were FNM Abaco candidates Darren Henfield and Vandia Stewart. Hurricane Dorian is the strongest hurricane to ever make landfall in the region. It tore through Abaco and Grand Bahama exactly 2 years ago, leaving ruin in its wake.
We may never get a full count of those we lost, but it is important that we always keep them in our hearts. We not just remember the persons lost, but the many who suffered as a result.
At least 74 people died in the storm and thousands were left homeless and displaced. Cooper says if the PLP wins the next general election, it plans on building more memorials to ensure all that was lost during Dorian is never forgotten.
But also to rebuild Grand Bahama and Abaco.
Reporting for our news, I'm Jasmine Brown.
Partly sunny skies today. Greg Thompson is in the Weather Center with the latest conditions.
Thanks, Christina. Welcome, everybody, for your first look at weather on this first day of September. Warm again around the islands. We did have some couple isolated showers and thunderstorms out there today. 84 is our current temperature outside our studios. Warm, few clouds. Your winds are very light, variable at 2 knots, and your feels-like temperature in the mid to upper 80s. Satellite view, big upper level low spinning across the islands, triggering some showers across the big islands, and a couple of those over the offshore waters. We could see 1 or 2 more of those showers later on tonight. That's your first look at weather. Your extended forecast is still to come.
Still to come on our news, the PLP's pledge on taxes and detecting the Delta variant. Find out more after this.
Welcome to our news and thanks for joining us. Topping news tonight.
COVID-19 remains a serious threat.
Coronavirus COVID-19 has disrupted our economy, tourism industry, educational system, and put our healthcare facilities and professionals on high alert. Are you prepared? Do you have all the facts? Stay tuned to this network for the very latest news and information on this global pandemic.
PLP laid out its 10-point action plan to revive the economy at its economic summit last night. Berthany McDermott has that.
PLP leader Philip Davis vowing that if elected to office, his government would not increase taxes on the poor and the middle class.
We're going to revive the Revenue Enhancement Unit. We will make sure that everyone pays their fair share of taxes. We will make sure that high-end properties pay their real property tax. We'll make certain that commercial and foreign-owned properties are on the register and properly valued for tax purposes. We are also going to fast-track those investments which can bring in the most value.
He added that the PLP plans to put an end to what he called money-wasting decisions, secret deals, and hidden spending, which he suggested was the practice under the current government. Davis affirmed the party's commitment to reducing value-added tax to 10%.
Dozens of countries have offered VAT relief to their people during this pandemic, and we should do so too.
Davis also gave the assurance that a PLP government would increase minimum wage to $250 per week. Around $200 million has been spent so far on the pandemic response. Davis, who is the MP for Cat Island, Rumkey, and Salvador, said the PLP has a 10-point action plan to fight the current crisis.
In order to lift the country out of crisis, we will have to move urgently on multiple fronts at once. First, we have to bring COVID under control. This government has failed badly, with the Bahamas at the bottom of regional and national rankings. Yes, vaccines are critical, but receiving vaccine doses as a donation from the United States does not amount to a comprehensive plan.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Berthany McDermott.
And though local health officials have insisted the Delta variant is likely circulating in the Bahamas, a Pan American Health Organization official says it has not been detected in any of the recent samples sent for testing. Dr. Jairo Mendez Rico, PAHO's advisor on emerging viral diseases, addressed the question from Our News.
The Alpha variant of concern has been detected in most of these samples from Bahamas, together with other variants in less proportion, including Iota, classified as by WHO as a variant of interest. So far, there is no evidence of Delta variant circulation in the Bahamas.
Well, a candidate who declared a net worth of just $60 insists he's a worthy candidate to represent the Garden Hills constituency. Jared Higgs has more.
With a self-declared net worth of $60, Kareem Hanschel is the least wealthy candidate in the 2021 general election.
They kind of like, I can't be in Parliament. What $60 got to do with anything other than I don't owe nobody nothing?
In a campaign featuring 65 millionaires, Hanschel lives by more frugal means. He earns $2,500 per month and $2,440 worth of bills, leaves $60 in savings. As far as the 38-year-old is concerned, the leftover money in his pocket leaves him far better off than the thousands of struggling Bahamians.
Since you laughing at the $60, who I earn, stick in a chicken grand every day and get to be on my hands and knees, and he ain't got to ask nobody for nothing. You're laughing at. I'm happy that you're laughing.
Many did find amusement in Hanschel putting himself forward with a 2-digit net worth. Some even suggested that it must be a little higher. But when we sit down with the father of 3 for nearly 40 minutes, we learn that he's doing better now than he was a year ago. Hanschel says he, his wife, and his daughter lived in a church during part of the pandemic as they bounced around from place to place.
She made like beds, and I slept in one, she slept in one, and my daughter slept in one. Okay? That was our time. We still went there and work, whatever, and God was able to bless us.
Things have stabilized now financially for him, and his fencing business has taken off. It's allowed him to engage his political ambitions again, running in this election in Garden Hills. In some ways, Hanschel isn't your typical model for a successful candidate. He doesn't have a bank account and says he only makes money as he needs it. On the other hand, he has a college degree in computer information systems and has spent years working with small businesses. As he shows us around his grandmother's home in Garden Hills, where he grew up, his older sister, Shanika Newton, died in March 2016. The pair were close, and the independent hopeful remembers some advice she shared with him.
Ram, keep doing what you're doing, but no one can help you.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Jared Higgs.
When Our News returns, Nicole Martin making waves. Stay with us.
Welcome to Our News, and thanks for joining us. Topping news tonight.
COVID-19 remains a serious threat.
Coronavirus COVID-19 has disrupted our economy, tourism industry, educational system, and put our healthcare facilities and professionals on high alert. Are you prepared? Do you have all the facts? Stay tuned to this network for the very latest news and information on this global pandemic.
This is Our News. Welcome back. Following consecutive wins in hotel union elections, F&M candidate for Nassau Village Nicole Martin is now hoping to score a win in the general election. She speaks with Kyle Joaquin.
My mother lived on the corner. My mother lived on the corner. We used to live in the front, and then we moved to the side. My grandparents' home that I spent a lot of time in is the house right behind this unfinished building.
She spent her whole life through this one corner in Nassau Village proper. Standing in front of her home and showing us around, Nicole Martin says this area is where her heart is.
You can see that peach building?
Down there.
That's a duplex. I moved there in '97, and then in 2003, I got my home started. In 2004, I moved here. This right here is Granny's Goodies. This is the famous Granny's Goodies. It is owned by my aunt. It's a family thing. We could cook and we could eat.
A member of the hotel union for 18 years who was repeatedly elected as president, Nicole Martin is entering a new arena. Running as the Free National Movement's candidate in Nassau Village, the trade unionist is looking to not just be a resident of the area, but the member of parliament.
They're casting this vote not for a party. They're casting it for them and the best person to represent them. I like to say to people that colors do not represent you in the halls of parliament. People do.
A mother of 3, grandmother, and now second-year law student, Martin shared her plans for the constituency, like a multi-purpose community center, a neighborhood crime watch, and a project called None Left Behind.
This project has to do with the young people that are suspended, expelled from school. It also has to do with drug addicts, alcohol addicts who need something, who need that extra hand.
As we walked through, she'd get an occasional hail from people driving and walking by. She says the people outside her constituency office have known her for years. But now she's hoping for their support as she faces off against the PLP's Jamal Strawn and incumbent Halson Moutry. With this edition of Meet the Candidate for Our News, I'm Kyle Joaquin.
In sports tonight, Jonquil Jones with a career high as the sun stays red hot. Marcellus Hall has that and more tonight in sports.
All right, thanks a lot and welcome to our sports, everybody. I'm Marcellus Hall. Jonquil Jones and the Connecticut Sun have been red hot as of late, picking up their 20th win in their last game, now going for number 9 in a row as they took on the Washington Mystics. Grand Bahama native Jonquil Jones back on the floor last night with the Connecticut Sun. Sun on the road, facing the Washington Mystics and looking for their 9th win in a row. Jones in her bag all game long. She scored 21 of her career high, tying 31 points in the second half. That led her team to the win 85-75. Jonquil also added 13 rebounds, 3 steals, and 3 blocks. She continues to lead the league in double-doubles. For the Sun, it's their longest win streak since a 12-game run back in 2006. They improved now to 21-6, first place in the Eastern Conference. Meanwhile, Jazz Chisholm and the Miami Marlins in action yesterday against the New York Mets. Opening game of the doubleheader, that saw Jazz having a huge impact. He went 3 for 5 at the plate with an RBI and 2 stolen bases on the day. That, however, would come in a losing effort. Marlins blow a 5-1 lead in the 7th inning to lose 6-5. In the second game of the doubleheader, Jazz unfortunately goes 0 for 3 in this one in the game with a walk. Marlins go down 3-1. Miami now 55-78 on the season. They're out of the playoff hunt, but still trying to play as if they have a chance and looking to play spoiler, knocking some teams down in the standings, which is all you can do at this stage of the game. And that's your check on sports for you here on this Wednesday. I'm Marcellus Hall. Back to you.
And a very happy, special birthday to you, Marcellus. Still to come on our news, a new channel caters to modern women. Stay with us.
Welcome to our news and thanks for joining us. Topping news tonight.
COVID-19 remains a serious threat.
Coronavirus COVID-19 has disrupted our economy, tourism industry, educational system, and put our healthcare facilities and professionals on high alert. Are you prepared? Do you have all the facts? Stay tuned to this network for the very latest news and information on this global pandemic.
Welcome back to our news. More rain may be on the way. Greg is back with a look at action in the Atlantic.
Thanks again, Christina. Welcome back, everybody, for your second look at weather. The tropics a little active right now. We have a newly formed Tropical Storm Larry, out there in the open Atlantic. Talk about it in a few minutes. Upper level low spinning across the Bahamas, generating some showers and some thunderstorms across the area. We had a couple of those earlier today across the capital. National Hurricane Center continuing to watch that area down the southwest Caribbean for some potential for development, continuing to move towards the west-northwest. Should be in the Gulf of Mexico over the next couple of days. And then we have Kate out there in the open Atlantic. Still a tropical depression, expected to weaken as it continues to pull towards the north. And of course, we are going to watch Larry, which is a strong tropical storm right now with 50-mile-per-hour winds. Will move towards the west-northwest over the next couple of days. Has a lot of time for us to watch it. And we are continuing to watch that, hoping that it turns out in the open Atlantic and stays there. Boating forecast for all areas tonight through tomorrow. Your winds will be variable at 5 to 10 knots. Seas 1 to 3 feet over the ocean. Tide is presently high. Will be low at 11:02 tonight. Here's a look now at your national forecast. A look now at your extended forecast through Monday. Typical summertime pattern expect over the next couple of days. Do enjoy. Back to you, Christina.
Thanks, Greg. Well, cooking, lifestyle, and travel content for millennial women is the focus of a new channel now available for all Rev TV subscribers. Clio is the sister network of the ever-popular TV One network. Senior Content Distribution Manager for Urban One, Johnny Miles, says the channel was created with modern women of color in mind.
There was a gray space that we felt like, TV One was a focus on African Americans in the U.S. I mean, that was our focus when we launched the network. But Clio TV wasn't a network that we wanted to focus on just African Americans. We wanted to focus on millennial and young Gen X women.
Watch Clio and TV One during the free preview week that runs until September 5th. Well, thank you for joining us for our news tonight. On behalf of the entire team, I'm Christina Dragovich. We'll see you right back here tomorrow night. Have a beautiful evening, Bahamas.